Good morning, everyone. What a pleasure it is to be with you. First, I want to thank Betsy for her being platform assistant this morning. And secondly, Jackie for her wonderful music. I miss not being with you. However, I have to be totally honest. I'm extremely grateful to the board who said, oh my goodness, since you're coming all the way out to do the pet blessing yesterday, you could do Church Sunday on Zoom, for which I am truly grateful, and I thank you for that. So, I want to talk about our pet blessing for a moment or two. It was so wonderful. Of course, it was cold. I thought we were going to have to put on our long underwear. But then, of course, as we looked at all those furry little creatures, our hearts felt very, very warm. And as we looked at one another, creating community and blessing the animals in our community, we felt warm. We looked at this and I thought of the story of creation. And most of us, are really focused on the fact that and God created humankind. Most of us really kind of forget that that was the final act. And so I'd like us to look at the creation story as we find it in Genesis. And this would be Genesis chapter 1, verse 20 to about verse 31. It looks like this. And God said, let the warm waters swarm with fish and other life. Let the skies be filled with birds of every kind. So God created great sea creatures and every sort of fish and every kind of bird. And God saw that it was good. Then God blessed them, saying, let the fish multiply and fill the oceans. Let the birds increase and fill the earth. This all happened on the fifth day. Continuing. And God said, let the earth bring forth every kind of animal, livestock, small animals, and wildlife. And so it was. God made all sorts of wild animals, livestock, and small animals, each able to reproduce more of its own kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make people. Let us make people in our image to be like ourselves. They will be masters over all life, the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, and all the livestock, wild animals, and small animals. I'm sure God meant big animals as well, like rhinoceros and elephants. And it continues. So God created people in God's own image. God patterned them after itself. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and told them, multiply and fill the earth and take care of it. Be masters over the fish and the birds and all the animals. And God said, look, I have given you seed-bearing plants through the earth, and all the fruit trees are your food. And I have given you all the grasses and other green plants to the animals and the birds for their food. And so it was. Then God looked over all he had made, and he saw that it was excellent in every way. This all happened on the sixth day. It's very interesting, folks. Before we were, the sky was filled with birds. And sometimes I see the sky filled with birds, don't we? We see those little, I don't know whether they're sparrows or it's, but they swarm and they look like a cloud moving back and forth. I also like the birds that come and feed at my bird feeder. Although we did have an issue the other day because I had run out of food and they were giving me some so where is it? However, I was still putting out the peanuts for the squirrels. Some of the birds have learned how to come and take the peanuts before the squirrels get to them. But that's their issue, and I leave that to them. We look at this story of creation, And we say to ourselves, what's going on here? God has created us in its image and likeness. That is to say, as an agent of creation and multiplication. And we have done that, friends. We have gone from stone axes, where we had to break another stone with a stone, to spaceships for ordinary people who might like to go to the moon. Okay, maybe not ordinary people who have lots of money, but that's a distinction I'm not going to go into this morning. This is the first idea that I'd like us to look at, that we are empowered for creation. Creating again and again and again, and reminding ourselves that after each iteration of God's creation, God looked and said, this is good. There's another aspect here that I'd like us to look at. When it goes back and says, and I have given all the grasses, and I've given you the animals, and everybody's got everything that they need. God provided for all and empowered human beings to be the organizers, the distributors, the caretakers, the caregivers. It was very evident at our pet blessing. You know, whenever you get a bunch of dogs together, well, they do their dog things. They go around sniffing each other. And then those dogs were so well behaved. There wasn't a single bark the whole morning. And there was a very nice cat present. This was the most chilled out cat I've ever seen. It was really, really a sweet calico. It had the nicest character. And when it was taken out and held in the arms of its human person, it just looked around and admired everybody. It wasn't afraid. And the dogs weren't like, a cat, we could go back. There was none of that. There was a wonderful energy of, we're in this thing together and we know how to behave. We are empowered. We are empowered to be like this. And so that was how humanity and nature interacted for a period of time in our social, psychosocial history. And then after a period of time, there appeared a new awareness. There appeared a man on the scene, a teacher. He was an ordinary man, like any other ordinary man. He was a human being, like any human being. His name was Jesus. And he offered us a new concept. He offered us a new concept. I'd like us to look at the Gospel of John, in which the apostles are speaking to him and say, you know, Jesus, we really don't know who you are. So could you tell us, please? And this is the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verse 9. And Jesus replies, Philip, don't you even yet know who I am, even after all the time I have been with you? Anyone who has seen me has seen the Father. So why are you still asking to see the Father? Don't you believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me? The words I say are not my own, but my Father who lives in me does the work through me. Just believe that I am in the Father and the Father is in me. Or at least believe because of what you have seen me do. And then Jesus tells them something about themselves. The truth is anyone who believes what I have been telling you about the Father within will do the same works I have done and even greater works. I'm going to stop and tell you a funny, because many years ago, in another lifetime, I was dating a very nice gentleman who looked at me one day and he said, you know, I have been farther on my bicycle along the Potomac River Trail than Jesus ever got from Nazareth. I don't think that's what Jesus had in mind when he said, well, listen, more will you do in my nature, meaning the nature of the Father within. I think actually he meant something else. And of course we have. We have found how to make glasses so that our vision, as it sometimes changes throughout our life, can be restored to its original creative energy. Same thing with our ears. As sometimes we hear less and less and less, but because words and sounds are so important, our intelligence gave us the opportunity to create ever increasingly better quality hearing aids. We also know that people who in some ways have lost the power to speak, they have had it restored through surgical procedures. In other words, we have been extraordinary in what we have been able to do. You know, Jesus made the blind to see, the lame to walk, the deaf to hear. We have done all that as well. And we continue to this day to make breakthroughs in medicine and science. We are continuing that creative work. So this awareness of God's empowerment within us, I suspect that God, the energy which is God today, looks out upon the earth and says, and this is good. And this is good. Here is our foundation. I have another spot for you in the Gospel of John, and it is verse 9, the one that the one I just read to you about the foundation of our teaching, our new thought teaching as expressed by unity. Each of us is an individualized expression of God. You know, we like to look at babies. Very shortly after they're born, we look at them and go, oh, he's got grandpa's nose. No, he's got grandpa's. Oh, wait a minute. No. Oh, he's got hair like Uncle so-and-so. No, not that, friends. It is looking at this child and going, there is the presence and the power of God in waiting to see the development of that child. That, I think, for those of us who have had our own children or who have had nieces, nephews, foster children, anyone who has been given into our care, perhaps in a professional capacity as a teacher or a facilitator of something, we see this unfolding God's empowerment in every human being. When we do this, friends, we should look at it and say, this is good. It is very sad that unfortunately, often in our lifetime, people are led astray by erroneous thought, or they are given to missing the mark in being that empowered presence of God, perhaps through physical illness, perhaps through mental illness. And so we look at some people and go, a lot of tisking. and making judgments. That's why when we sing our song, I behold the Christ in you, we are returning our consciousness to that awareness in that moment when we look at that newborn child and go, there is the embodiment of the power of God in all its power, in all its purity, in all its potential. And even as we age, I want to remind you, Grandma Moses took up painting in her 80s. The potential for us to always be agents of that creativity is there. But sometimes we forget that. There's another point I would like to point out, that the life principle in all of us, which is another way of saying God, is in every living thing. Okay, when I spoke to the small group of people that we had on Saturday morning, I said to them, we bless our beloved pets, not because they need a blessing, but because they are a blessing to us. They bring us joy. They bring us love. Okay, sometimes they bring us misery and we scream at them, barf cat. Okay, that's one of mine. I have a cat that scarfs and barfs. Those of you who have cats know what I'm talking about. But in the next moment, I go, it's okay, honey. I really didn't mean it. I love you. Friends, if we say this to our animals, can we not be willing to say it to one another when we appear to have missed the mark? I like that expression, missed the mark. I grew up in a more traditional version of spirituality that implied that sin was very present in the world and that each of us was vulnerable to sin, and left to our own devices, we'd probably do a lot of sinning. And then I walked into a Unity church and it said, you aimed, but you missed the mark and you are forgiven. Perhaps you were distracted. Perhaps you were believing a false message about yourself that was handed to you by someone who had the same false message handed to them. And what we have now learned through psychological studies is the trauma of generation upon generation. And I like to quote the speaker whom I met over 20 years ago, Ernie Larson, who said, hurt people. And so when we pray and when we look at others, we ask for healing. We ask for healing of the past hurts. We go into the subconscious mind, which is the reservoir of everything that has ever happened to us. And through prayer and meditation, we allow it to come to our conscious mind, and we can heal it. Another speaker many years ago said, what you can feel, you can heal, which is why in our process of healing, we often say, just feel it, just be with it, let it be. And we find as we do that, it frees us to see more broadly, to see more deeply, to see more widely. Now, I said everything that has a life principle is it. Okay, we're good with that. Our kitties, our doggies, our birds, our pets, our gerbils, whatever we have, our ferrets. Okay, then we get to bigger animals like cows and horses. They're still good. Rhinos. Okay, most of us have not seen a real rhinoceros except in a zoo. And except for elephants, we probably only see them in zoos unless you have traveled to places. Yeah, but what about some of the smaller creatures? Like termites and fire ants. And I thank God that I have not seen one in a very long time, but little creatures like cockroaches The last one I saw was about 18 years ago. Unfortunately, it was crawling up the wall next to the table in the restaurant in which I was sitting. Okay, that was not my best God moment, folks. But I discreetly raised my hand and said, I'd like to point something out to you. You may want to look at this issue. And decided not to report them to the health authorities. Okay, I'm being a little lighthearted here, because there are things that distress us. And yet we are enjoined to believe that all life created by God is good. That includes people. That includes people. And when that baby is born, doesn't matter whether it has curly hair, straight hair, no hair, has a funny nose, a cute nose, has no chin or big chin, or has Uncle Louie's chin, or whatever. We see in it that potential. Friends, on any given day, God sees that same potential within us because it is looking at itself. I know that I have told you on numerous occasions that the first thing you should do when you get up in the morning is run into the bathroom, throw open your arms and say, "Good morning, God, what are we going to do today?" I don't know if any of you have tried, but I do it every morning, and you'd be surprised what some of my days have brought to me. Like yesterday when I looked in the mirror and said, "What are we going to do today, God?" I said, "We're going to bless the animals, aren't we?" And it brought me joy, and it brought our community joy. And somebody said, you know, the reason these animals are so nice is because everybody here really loves them. We need to love our animals. Why? Because they are creatures of God. The same way we need to love our planet and everything on it. When God created it all and said that it was good, God at the same time gave us its care. And regrettably, we look about us today and we see climate disasters, and we recognize that we have been remiss in that. Each one of us, in a way, friends, is responsible for taking care of our planet. We invite us to do that. First by blessing it, just blessing it. And then doing whatever we can. The thing is, we are all one in the one power. That which is within that one power. It doesn't matter what we look like, how tall we are, how short we are, how thin we are, how thick we are, whether we have curly hair or straight hair or no hair, whether we have big noses or little noses, whether we have, because we are created in a spiritual image of energy in potential. Now, the challenging part is the infinite diversity. When we think of the several billions of people on the planet, I need to remind you again, no two people have the same set of fingerprints. I'm going to say that again. No two people have the same set of fingerprints. If that doesn't tell us that God's potential for diversity isn't infinite, I don't know what does, friends. I don't know what does. And so we look at that. And we say to ourselves, how well am I doing in that department? How well am I doing in that department? Well, we may not be doing as well as we would like to say. Friends, in the gospel, in John 13:34, I wish to read to you what Jesus said to us. 13:34. Wait, hang on. The print is so small on these things. Here we go. Jesus is speaking to his disciples. So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other just as I have loved you. You should love each other. Yes, Jesus did. He should have done this. We say we shouldn't should on ourselves. In this case, we should. Love one another as I have loved you. And how did God love us? How did God? I'm going to tell you a quick story. I don't know if it's true. I don't think it's true, but it made sense to me. And for the life of me, I can't find where I found it. One day up in heaven, after God created the planet, a group of angels get together. God calls them over and says, what do you think? I think I'd like to create human beings. What do you think? And the angels will go, oh, no, that is not a good idea at all. Oh my God, they're just going to mess up completely. They're going to rob, steal, cheat one another. They're going to kill one another. They're going to destroy the planet. You don't want to do that. And God thinks, maybe you're right. But he doesn't really like what they said, so snaps his fingers like that, and that bunch of angels is gone. Little time passes, and God gets the same idea again. I think I want to create human beings. So he calls another group together. I use the term he because that's how the story was told. For we know that God is without gender. He is with all gender. It is with all gender. And he says to the second group of angels, I've been thinking about creating human beings. What do you think? And they go, no, definitely not. You know what the last guy said? They said they're going to lie, cheat, steal one another, kill one another, destroy the planet. You don't want to do that. Well, God is again disappointed, and he snaps his fingers, and they're gone. Well, time passes. God had an idea. Calls another group of angels together and says, what do you think? I want to create human beings. Well, this group is really smart. They saw what happened to the other two groups. They go, right on. Oh, definitely go for it. Definitely create human beings. God goes, good. And God creates human beings. And what have we done? We have lied, we have cheated, we have killed one another. We have damaged our planet. But what has God done? God still loves us, forgives us, and remains present within us. So when the teacher comes along and says, love one another as I have loved you, we are given an important message that says, this, human beings, is your task. You are to love one another regardless of how you appear in human form. That's a task, friends. But remember, we are empowered with 12 powers, which are the same attributes of God. And this first one that we require is faith. To believe that what we have been told in this regard is true. There is only one power and one presence in the universe, God the good, everywhere present, all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving. And we are an individualized expression of that. The second power that we need to exercise is will. And in this case, it is willingness. Willingness. So that when the question is raised, whom shall I send? We answer as they did in Scripture, Hineni, here I am, Lord. Send me. and I will restore the earth. I will heal the sick. I will uplift the ill. I will bring peace. And then lastly, the power of love. Love one another as I have loved you. And we had a model of that. The one who enabled the blind to see, the deaf to hear, the dumb to speak, the lame to walk. In other words, to live in our matrix of world. That's what we say, friends, when we sing our song and say, I behold the Christ in you. It is this consciousness of creativity within us. Is this easy? No, it's hard. And that's why we need one more of the powers. It's the one that I choose to call discernment, and some people call judgment. Judgment, especially in the word in the English language, has a negative connotation. Well, I'm going to make a judgment about that. Whereas discernment offers us the opportunity to think, ponder, and explore. We'll give you an example of judgment. Oh, will you look at that? There is a tone of voice, look on the face that is saying, not my idea of good. That's judgment. Whereas I think discernment looks like that. Oh, God. It's you in expression. It's you in expression. I and thou and me. I and the Father are one. So how do we do this? Of course, we judge not by appearance. Friends, there is an old Russian proverb which says the eyes are the windows to the soul. When we look into each other's eyes, we are looking deeply into each other's soul, to the life principle within us, to the presence of God made flesh. And then we can say, honestly and truthfully, I behold the Christ in you without judgment, only discerning the truth of who you are.